Unpaid overtime is at the center of a lawsuit filed by current and former supervisors of Houston's solid waste department against the city. They say they were averaging 70-hour weeks and were only being paid for 40 hours. 13 Investigates' Micah Hatfield sat down with one of the former employees who's leading the charge.
When you start a new job, it's hard to know what that first day will look like. Will they ease you in or throw you in?
I reported to work at 6 a.m. and did not get off until 9:30 p.m.
For Patrick Forciori, he says his first day back in 2020 as a supervisor at the City of Houston's Solid Waste Department did not go how he thought it would. And he says things never changed for the 2 years that he worked there. His understanding was that his job consisted of preparing routes for recycling pickup drivers, vetting 311 calls, and assigning them to others to be completed, and doing payroll and hiring.
So you say you expected it to be a 60-40 split. I assume that was 60% desk work, 40% out in the field?
That is correct.
And what breakdown would you say you ended up being?
80% in the field, 90% in the field, and 10 to 15% in the office.
Forciori filed a federal lawsuit against the city in April of this year, claiming he was not compensated for all of the overtime that he worked. He was a salaried employee supposed to work 40 hours a week, he says in the lawsuit, but averaged 70 hours a week. Forciori says because of the staffing in solid waste, he and other supervisors worked alongside hourly workers on the streets, picking up trash and delivering cans. 13 Investigates found during the first 10 months of 2022, a dozen supervisors worked 6,646 extra hours past their normal 40-hour shift. That's according to their timesheets, all without getting any more in their paychecks. Meantime, the hourly workers, who technically Forciori says he managed, were making more money than him due to overtime pay. Data obtained by 13 Investigates shows the city paid hourly workers $7.5 million in overtime during fiscal year 2022.
With the amount of overtime that they were working, they were bringing home $80, $90, $100,000 a year consistently. Whereas, salaried supervisors who are out there the same amount of time were at 60,000, mid-60s.
Even though his title made him a salaried employee who could not earn overtime, Forciori argues in his lawsuit that because he was doing the work of an hourly employee, he should be eligible under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Forciori left the city in 2022 and has been trying to get compensated for all the overtime he worked for years. He addressed the city council just prior to quitting the job, asking why the protections put in place by Mayor Turner to prevent what was happening were not being used in solid waste.
Why are my colleagues working 80 hours a week in the presence of this Executive Order 1-61, which is supposed to supply us relief?
13 Investigates first spoke with Forciori in January of 2023. At the time, he was being represented by attorney Tony Busby, who penned a letter to the city saying the case should have been resolved short of litigation because it's the right thing to do. It didn't happen.
The city did not respond positively in any form or fashion.
Forciori and 6 others are now represented by Rick Prieto in what could become a collective action suit, which is similar to a class action suit.
Private employers tend to look at that, weigh their options, and reach a resolution earlier. And fortunately, when you're dealing with a public entity like the City of Houston, there seems to be a different idea about resolution, especially early on, and which is unfortunate because at the end of the day, that's everyone here has funded that.
The city emphasized to 13 Investigates in a statement that these concerns arose under a previous administration. They went on to say in a statement, quote, "We are thoroughly reviewing these claims and are confident our classification procedures are in full compliance with FLSA requirements," end quote. This case is still in its early phases. Micah Hatfield, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.